Hey y'all, I'm Kelly, and this is The Woman Condemned, where we talk about women on death row and those serving life. Today we're going to talk about Michelle Tharp. I told you guys about her before in a story time about what she did to me, but this video is for Dottie, who requested it. She wants to know what Michelle did to her one daughter, Tasha. Only Tasha, not the rest of her kids. So stay tuned. Let's check it out. Born in Burgettstown, Pennsylvania, Tasha Lee Lanham had a hard life from the very moment she drew her first breath, several months premature. She spent the first year of her life in the hospital. Her mother, Michelle Sue Tharp, already had one child. She'd have two more, the last with her live-in boyfriend, Doug Bittinger, after Tasha's birth. For some inexplainable reason, Tasha was the only one forced to endure the unbearable torture their mother inflicted on them. One day, Michelle just decided her daughter Tasha could not eat. She began to starve the child. She would barricade her behind chairs and tables or lock her in a pantry. She was never allowed to eat, and no one around her could do anything to stop it, although they tried. Not her family, not neighbors, and not social workers. Time and again, family members called the authorities, but Michelle easily avoided scheduled home visits. Michelle didn't just keep Tasha from eating, but she kept everyone else from feeding her too, with threats and violence. Tasha was kept locked away at all times, often chained to the toilet for days as she grew weaker and weaker. When she managed to get free, she would eat whatever was within reach: pet food, cake mix, garbage, and drink from the toilet. A neighbor told authorities she saw Michelle withhold food from the girl, who then tried to eat toy dog food. She described Tasha as so small, pale, and weak. When she asked Michelle what was wrong with her, she replied, "Tasha belongs 6 feet under in a body bag." This was 3 weeks before she died. When a family member offered to take Tasha off her hands, Michelle refused. Her own stepmother called social services 25 times from 1996 until Tasha died in 1998. Michelle had stopped letting her see Tasha when she'd fed her at one visit. When Michelle returned home on 4/18/98, she found Tasha's tiny 12-pound body had finally given up. In a panic, she called Doug home. He wanted to call the police, but she refused, saying she was afraid social services would take the rest of the children. They came up with a plan to say Tasha was abducted from a shopping mall. They put her body in the car seat and loaded it in the car along with the other kids. They drove aimlessly for a while and then stopped and bought garbage bags. They put Tasha's tiny body in a bag and drove and drove and drove. They drove to a rural area in West Virginia, and that's when they threw her in the wooded area. Then they went to the Ohio Mall and wandered around before trying their plan out, which failed miserably. As soon as police started questioning them, they caved. Doug was first. He took investigators to the location of Tasha's body. An autopsy later showed 7-year-old Tasha weighed 12 pounds and was only 31 inches tall. There had been no food in her stomach for several days. The cause of death was determined to be starvation. There were obvious signs of malnutrition, like there was no fat in her body whatsoever, and the grinding surfaces of her teeth had extreme wear. Both Michelle and Doug were charged with criminal homicide and waived their right to a jury trial. They were denied and went to trial separately. Witness after witness testified against Michelle, detailing the horrific abuse she doled out on her own daughter. 3 inmates testified against Michelle as well. They told her how Michelle had admitted to Tasha's murder, saying she was glad Tasha was dead, that she never loved her and abused her because she was retarded. Michelle testified on her own behalf. She said Tasha had failure to thrive, which seems to be, and I'm not a doctor, but failure to thrive is just a child that isn't growing like it should, not one that's starving to death. She claimed she had no support and suffered constant abuse since childhood. She admitted to being a bad mother, but not intentionally starving her child. She was convicted and sentenced to death, plus 2 years. She's made good use of her appeals, but they were all denied. As of 2021, she's trying to get her sentence commuted to life. She has been granted a new sentencing, so a jury can hear the evidence and maybe give her a lower sentence.